Welcome to my new podcast, An Orange Future, The Quest for Financial Freedom. Why I believe everyone should have some exposure to Bitcoin. Before I get into it, I would like to read out the following disclaimer. Please note, the following content should not be taken as financial advice. It's purely for educational purposes only, based on thousands of hours of research and opinions from some very clever minds and experienced successful people in the Bitcoin space. The aim is to help you achieve the necessary knowledge and show you where to find useful and up-to-date resources which enable you to do your own research and use this knowledge to go on and help you get off zero and then become a successful Bitcoiner. The warning sign is to emphasize that if you do end up going down the Bitcoin rabbit hole, it may change the way you see money from this point onwards and make you question your government's irresistible urge to continue to print money, which in turn gets added to an unsustainable debt pile. You may even get the reality check that most Bitcoiners come to, that the current fiat system is fundamentally flawed. Some might even say rigged or broken. So let's get into this episode. It's called What the Heck is Fiat Currency? And why has it got anything to do with Bitcoin? And is fiat currency the problem? In my first episode, I called it What the Heck is Bitcoin? I gave my take on Bitcoin and that to really understand Bitcoin, it's essential to understand the problem that I and many other Bitcoiners think Bitcoin solves. And that problem, I believe, is fiat currency. So what is fiat currency? It's government-issued money not backed by a physical commodity like gold or silver. Its value comes from public trust in the issuing government. The fiat part comes from the Latin word, let it be done. How has fiat caused the problem? Well, in 1971, President Nixon took the United States off a one-to-one gold-to-dollar backed standard, replacing it with a debt-based system where central banks are able to print their own nation's currency and add it to a national debt pile, which accrues interest continually. Even in as little as seconds, each nation's debt piles are constantly increasing. It is literally backed by nothing but debt and trust. Many other nations followed. The scary part that no country seems to have any plans or imminent ones to pay off or reduce this debt. This all sounds a bit insignificant until you look at your own country's debt clock. I will show you our own one here in the United Kingdom for context. It's on debtclock.org, and in Q4 of 2025, we owe 2.75 trillion. Yes, that's trillion. And if you think that's a scarily high amount, which it is, just pop over to the American one, usdebtclock.org. And in Q4 2025, that stands at a whopping 37.6 trillion. These are like ginormous IOUs. This was a screenshot I took yesterday of the UK's one. As you can see, it actually adds on at £4,959 per second, and the debt is 2.749 trillion, so it's quite enormous. So how is this debt serviced? The accruing interest is paid through taxation and selling government bonds and issuing new debt, money creation, to pay the interest on existing debt. This is known as rolling over or raising the debt ceiling. So why do they keep printing if this just leads to higher inflation? I can't really answer that. It's a bit above my pay grade. I can only imagine that politically each individual nation with accumulating debt are so far down the road since 1971 that they have all created a monster that can't be put back in the cage now without a collective approach or a well thought out plan before the inevitable fiat collapse. In Bitcoin terms, we call it the money printer goes burr, and it's been well documented through various forms like quantitative easing, quantitative tightening, but it is generally just money printing. This has been going on for 6 decades now, since 1971. So how can I explain it in a way that would make sense to someone? I don't know if everyone here will remember a game called Monopoly. We've played it for many, many years. We haven't played it for a while, but it's one of the oldest board games from the 20th century, where each player rolls 2 dice and makes their way round the board, hoping to land on properties that you can buy, if not already owned by another player, and then charge rent if another player ends up landing on your property. You played until all players run out of money. Eventually, someone with the most property and the most money will win. So I'm going to take you through the rules of my new version of Monopoly. It's called Monopoly, the Fiat Edition. Although I haven't played Monopoly for some time, my recollection of Monopoly ended up the player who acquired the most ended up being the winner, or after several hours, the game would just get paused and abandoned with the intention of restarting where we left off. So let's talk about this Fiat Edition version. So the banker becomes a central banker, and you play with 3 other players for 60 minutes. And then you stop the game, you record each player's assets, and any cash or property that any players can be converted into Bitcoin. The game gets put away. Everyone records which properties they owned, and whatever the values was gets converted until the next session. So the next session is actually going to be in 5 years' time. So we're going to box it all up, put it all away, and re-continue the game in 5 years' time. This time, 2 new players want to join the game. So to allow for inflation, you let the new players start with £300 instead of £200. However, all the properties and rents have now increased by 50% on the board, and the central bank has doubled his amount of cash holdings and written an IOU in the banknotes. The players that converted their cash and properties to Bitcoin, and for simple maths, let's use a 40% CAGR, which stands for compound annual growth, and say the Bitcoiners all ended up the first phase of the game with £2,000, they would be starting phase 2 with £6,000 in capital. And the central banker, that's banker with a B, has doubled his stack of cash with the aid of a money printer and now holds £8,000. So how fair and how long would this game last? Does it feel a bit rigged? Welcome to the world of fiat currency. I hope you enjoyed that. It was just my take on fiat from a gaming perspective. So who benefits from a fiat system? The beneficiaries to this rigged system are central banks, government officials with huge state-backed pensions, or people on huge salaries where inflation is just a number to them, or anyone who owns assets. These assets can be in many forms, but without owning assets, there is no way of competing in a rigged fiat system. Technically, with such high inflation, if you own real estate, property, your debt will slowly be eroding while the building value goes up. So failure to own some kind of assets will definitely leave you playing catch up to those that do. What assets should I buy? There is no one-size-fits-all answer to this question. It will all boil down to a combination of time horizon, attitude to risk, and how much capital you have to begin with. It will require investment, starting with yourself. You might just want to start reading and learning to see which path will suit you that you feel most comfortable with. Before making any financial commitments with AI and today's internet, this information has never been more readily available for you to do your own research. Networking is a good place to start. Who do you know and trust who successfully accumulates assets, who might be able to give you some advice on how to get started on your journey, and how can I find like-minded people to help me get started? What assets should you acquire to beat this system? Well, there are multiple. There's real estate property, which can be in the form of residential or commercial. It's a proven strategy for wealth creation, mainly through intelligent leverage, which basically means you can borrow up to 75% of the value of a property with a 25% deposit. Gold and silver, they are 2 of the longest, most trusted stores of value we've ever known. They've been around for hundreds of thousands of years, and in 2025, it's proven to be a great store of value. Stocks and shares, the S&P 500, or Tesla, Nvidia, or Bitcoin treasury companies. These have all benefited being able to be held in a tax-free wrapper, such as in the UK here we have ISA. In America, they believe they have a Roth IRA. So intellectual property, this can be an ebook or an online course. It can also be another asset that can generate income. So Bitcoin. This really is best accumulated when you've put in the hours studying Bitcoin. My long-term thesis sees it outperforming all of the above assets over the long term due to its overall scarcity and divisibility, but it remains volatile and choppy over the short term. So I want to bring to your attention someone who is well known in the worlds of property. His name is Robert Kiyosaki. He's the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And if I was doing this presentation at a property event, if I was to ask who in the room has read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, you'd probably get 90% of the room's hands going up. He has actually sold 40 million copies. He has actually changed many lives. I've followed Robert for probably about 4 or 5 years on X, and he always comes up with some interesting tweets. I scrolled back to look at some of the ones over recent years. He tweeted back in 2022, worried about Bitcoin. He said, "No, I'm a Bitcoin investor, as I am an investor in physical gold, silver, and real estate. I'm not a trader or a flipper. When Bitcoin hits a new bottom, I will get excited, not worried. I bet against the Fed Treasury." He tweeted in April 2023. He's put Bitcoin up over 100% in a year. Will Bitcoin keep going up? I'm betting on it. I'm buying more gold and silver. Why buy more gold, silver, and Bitcoin? Because the Fed Treasury are liars. In October 23, he's put gold will soon break $2,100 an ounce and then take off. You will wish you had bought gold below $2,000. Next stop, gold, $3,700. Bitcoin testing $30,000. Next stop, Bitcoin, $135,000. Silver from $23 to $68 an ounce. The next tweet, I'm often asked what happens if Bitcoin crashes. My reply is the same for gold, silver. I would be happy and I would just buy more. So I think the point I'm trying to make is that Robert Kiyosaki, one of the world's most famous investors, is very bullish on accumulating assets. In 2025, he's tweeted that buy gold, silver, and Bitcoin. I rarely sell gold, silver, and Bitcoin. Rich Dad's words of wisdom are, money is a tool, not a goal. Freedom is the goal. So going back to assets, when I mentioned Bitcoin treasuries, is because with full disclosure, I have been involved in one called MicroStrategy, now renamed as Strategy. Since going over to a Bitcoin standard, they bought Bitcoin on the balance sheet, in 5.5 years, their return has been 2,200%. In that time frame, there has still been some very strong performances. Nvidia has turned in a 1,500% increase. Bitcoin itself, 800. Tesla, 361%. Technology does play a big part in stocks and shares and whether a stock is successful or not. So why is fiat a problem? Well, unsustainable inflation equals currency debasement, which in turn means your purchasing power is decreased, which then leads to a cost of living crisis. So you will ask yourself questions like, how do the next generation ever own a house? And will the average working adult ever be able to retire? How will this end, or will the system implode? Is there a viable solution? Is Bitcoin anti-fiat? Is it kryptonite to the fiat system? There can be no infinite printing of Bitcoin. It is mathematically programmed to be finite. It is pure digital scarcity. It's a hard-capped asset supply of 21 million Bitcoin. It's written in the rules. It's non-negotiable. It is highly divisible as each individual Bitcoin is made up of 100 million units. These are called Satoshi. It's already recognized as money and has definitely got the 3 money definitions covered. It is a medium of exchange, a store of value, and a unit of account. Fiat is the game you have to try and beat, and it's because of inflation and the dangers of printing too much money. What are these dangers? Hyperinflation. Countries like Venezuela, Zimbabwe, and Argentina have all encountered high inflation. This high level inflation can be attributed to an excessive increase in the money supply, and this can lead to currency valuations dropping, which in turn will make importing goods more expensive to the country involved. Fiscal policies managing interest rates becomes trickier as lower interest rates promote growth and spending, and in turn lower interest payments on national debt, but can lead to higher inflation, which also has to be managed and balanced. This brings me to another aspect: fractional reserve banking. This alone probably warrants an entire podcast episode. This is a system where central banks are only required to hold a fraction of customer deposits as reserves and can lend out the rest. This process allows banks to create new money by lending. For example, if the reserve requirement is 10%, the bank will lend out the other 90% of any deposits. Imagine this being duplicated multiple times. You can see why during the 2008 banking crisis, banks were unable to facilitate withdrawals and ended up with government bailouts. So where did the government bailout come from? Yes, you guessed it. They turned on the money printers. So if you want to delve deeper into this subject, I have got some amazing books. I have read them. They are The Bitcoin Standard by Saifedean Ammous, Broken Money by Lynn Alden, The Big Print by Lawrence Lepard, or Jeff Booth's The Price of Tomorrow. So I'd like to thank you for listening and taking the time to listen or watch an Orange Future podcast. I do very much appreciate and value each and everyone's time. Time is finite, like Bitcoin, and should always be valued as such. If you have enjoyed the content and would like me to take you on a Bitcoin journey and hopefully inspire you and others to become Bitcoiners in some shape or form, all I would ask is that you kindly hit the like and subscribe buttons. I will be truly grateful, and it will help me immensely to grow the channel. I am creating a membership channel, which is going to be on Patreon, where you can join like-minded community of Bitcoiners and financial freedom seekers. On this platform, you will have access to easy to follow getting started courses, share best practices and platforms. I will be uploading all the slide decks from all the podcasts, as well as hosting regular Zoom meetups for Q&A sessions, or just to hang out when Bitcoin hits all-time highs. Memberships will start from just £5.50 plus VAT per month for early adopters. Thank you for listening.